how's that in comparison?
Much
It's a
better.
lot better, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, nice. Yeah, for some reason it wasn't giving the options, but now it is. I realised my wired earphones though were nicked along with.
Oh Christ.
Just more and more things turn out to have been in there, kind of stupidly. But...
Am I allowed to ask how they were stolen?
Yeah. I can give the full story in a minute, but first I want to just say hello to Tom because
Hello.
we've not met, have we? I don't think. Or
We might have. Were you at a birthday party for Tom in 2019?
Newcastle.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. In which case we would have done. Were you one of the ones in the room?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The room.
Oh, iconic. Yes. Yeah. No, I do. Yeah.
It's very unlikely that I remember you because I was off my face, but we'll have crossed paths probably.
Yes. No. Well, I remember the room, so that's close enough to me. That's...
I can't take the room seriously. It's such an ominous. Like, see, people are gonna think it's like a red room or something. Like,
You know, my favorite part of that room was there was people from our friend group from home who were like standing outside the room and they wanted in, but we weren't letting them in.
I don't know what this room is.
How did
was
I
at
end
this
up in
party.
the room? I'm pretty sure I spent at least some time in the room, is my memory, unless this is a different room. So I don't know how I ended up there. But,
I can't remember who was in there, to be honest. Basically, Louis, it was a room where
I know which room it was now. Yeah, I didn't venture into that room. I was too busy with the Colin the Caterpillar cake in the kitchen, you know.
there was a cake. There was a cake. That's mental.
Yeah, Sam left the room to come down and karate chop the cake. I guess I'll do like a mini introduction for listeners to be like,
Go on.
oh, hi everyone. We've brought on another Tom this week just to make things confusing, but it's a different Tom.
Yeah.
Little Tom is what you change your Discord nickname to on this one. Is this?
Well, Little Tom's my nickname in every friend group apart from my longest friend group at home that Lou and I are both part of. And I don't know why. It's never caught on in that friend group.
We we can handle two Toms at the same time. You know, we've got huge brains. We're able
Very
to
impressive.
mix and match. Yeah.
Yeah, Lou, we've known each other for like a decade now.
Jesus Christ.
Longer, actually.
That's actually quite a shocking revelation. I'm not gonna lie, because I feel like you're one of the people in the group that I got to know later. So the fact that it's still a decade is
Well, that's because I went to a different school, and then I only started interacting with people again whenever I was 16, apart from Joe and Yusuf. So you and I only really became friends over COVID, playing video games, really.
Yeah, the Minecraft bonding sessions, pretty much. Minecraft got us through. Ronan, can I now ask you about what happened to your laptop?
Yeah, go on. It's like I kept on saying that it will make a good story with time, and I had thought as in like in a few weeks or months, but
Yes.
I'm kind of I'm accelerating it as part of my, I'm sure, very healthy grieving process for my laptop. I think the key thing is that I actually lost the bag twice. I think I'll sort of shoot straight forward to that punchline because that's just what makes the story so good and so depressing. I was at a event for work on the Thursday, and then basically we got a few free drinks at the work event and had a couple of beers on the train. I don't think that was entirely the reason, but I'm including that because it was probably a factor, let's be real. But it was also a knackering day, and essentially I just left my bag on the train. There was this whole palaver. I was trying to like call up, but all the sort of helplines and that were like pretty useless. And I kept on thinking, well, at least my laptops aren't in there, you know, like it could be a lot worse. If I don't get it back, I don't get it back.
No.
But I go into work the next day. I decide to walk over to Euston during my lunch break, ask at lost property, fully not expecting anything, and then they bring out my bag, and just the euphoria, the excitement, just that pure rush. I told Hannah I got a call from Hannah, and Hannah was like, "Oh, somebody's clearly looking out for you. That's it's all good. It's all going your way." three hours later.
Out Millhouse.
3 or 4 hours later, in the pub, having work drinks. Somebody's leaving. Having a lovely time.
Sorry, was this back-to-back work drinks then?
Yeah, well, no. So the night before, it wasn't really work drinks. There was just
drinking with work on a train.
Yeah. Train drinks. That's like
train drinks.
You got to have drinks on a train, right? That's it comes with the ticket. A few hours later, basically, we're at the pub and it's all going well. But then when it comes to leaving, my bag's just not there, and it was in a pile with like a whole, everybody else's bags, which it also kind of rubs salt into the wound, because of all the bags, it had to be the one that had literally just been retrieved. But yeah,
and the other bags had like valuable stuff in them as well. Like, had they sifted through other people's bags and just specifically taken yours with the laptop in it?
I mean, they literally couldn't have done, because the pile was right next to our table, as in, touching the feet of the people at the end of the table it was at. I think, like, if there was any selection, it could have just been that they sort of picked up the bags slightly and sort of felt the heaviest one, potentially.
Right, yeah.
What brand of bag did you have?
Osprey, which maybe looks kind of fancier. It's like a kind of walking brand, I guess.
They're probably like, I can get my hiking in for this weekend. New bag.
They're dismayed, found a laptop. They're like, I was hoping it was a water bottle.
You're hoping it was some size 9 boots.
Yeah, the disappointment, I'm sure, was pretty heartbreaking for them. Like as it turned out, I think like so as soon as we kind of like were looking around a bit panicked, I mean, like somebody put a message into the work group chat, and everybody thought, has anybody seen Ronan's bag? And everybody thought they were taking the piss, because everybody had heard about my palaver that day. But then like the staff kind of see that we were kind of getting a bit sort of puzzled and that, and then sort of the table next door saw it, and then basically they all sort of came out and sort of said that they'd seen some sort of dodgy types. In fairness to them, like, there's kind of not really much you can do in that situation. You don't really know.
I don't know. But it sounds a bit suspicious to me to blame some random dodgy. They definitely took it, got it under their table. Like, some dodgy type came in. You know the ones.
Well, I mean, I have to say that like the people on the table next to us is so funny. I guess they were just like a few drinks in, and like I can kind of picture how this would have gone down for them. As far as they were concerned, suddenly just drama was breaking out at the pub. they could offer some key information. So they seemed so elated giving away this information, even though it was totally and utterly useless.
That's the most British thing ever. I can offer some information.
I'm of use.
Yeah. But so that was about it. There's kind of not a whole lot more to it, to be honest.
So were you like leaving when you noticed it had gone, or were you just like, I'm just going to check my bag and then?
Nah, leaving. Oh, I've forgotten the sort of not the pinnacle of the story, but just the last little like gut punch. Bags were underneath a sign that said, "Watch out for thieves."
Oh no. Well,
But I mean, with the exception of that, there was kind of like I mean, now I wouldn't leave a bag in a pile. I'd probably be too paranoid. But there's no way that I'd have ever thought it was a problematic spot to leave them beforehand, just given how like they were literally touching the ankles of people at that end of the table.
That's the thing, you've added them all to like a group pile, and like there's an element of like, we're a group, we're together, the pile of bags is under the table together, like, or whatever, like touching people's ankles. Like there's an element of like just believing that it's a safe spot, right?
Yeah, and on one level, it kind of works. Safety in numbers. For everybody else, it's great.
Everyone else's bags are fine.
My younger brother does this thing where, You know the air tags that you can get from Apple? He puts one of those in his bag so that he always knows where it is.
That is a big brain move, to be fair. But it requires forethought and belief that your bag might be stolen.
To be fair, though, I should be considering something like this for future because I am.
Yeah, I was going to say maybe a lesson learned.
Yeah, I've finally been rendered into a paranoid Londoner. It's happened. I'm constantly checking my pockets and everything. It's yeah.
It was a MacBook as well, right?
Oof.
Yeah.
Is there not a track my MacBook kind of thing? Is that?
Nah. Well, yes, there is, but it was kind of offline.
Right.
I guess that kind of makes sense. I did keep thinking. Actually, this was more. I mean, I didn't particularly feel like I deserved this, but before the with the rucksack, when I left it on the train, I was like, that was bound to happen sooner or later. The leaving it on a train was a very me move, and then as Hannah's very kindly pointed out, having it stolen the next day after refinding it is also a very me move, but not particularly through any fault of my own. It's just the sort of bad luck that could only happen to me.
It's just the universe giving you a swift follow-up kick after getting it reclaimed.
Yeah,
that's the thing. Like, I brought it up I mentioned to my parents that like, oh yeah, we had to postpone the recording of the episode and because Ronan's laptop's been stolen. And my mum was immediately like, oh, like what's the story behind it? And I was like, oh, not being funny, I didn't just immediately quiz Ronan on the exact details behind the disappearance. I was just like, yeah, no, that's a real shame. Don't worry, we'll push it back. But we ended up talking about how like my dad has a bad habit of having fleeces he claims stolen, which always seems to be a case of when he's had a few too many to drink in a pub or club, and then all of a sudden his favorite fleece goes missing. But it often is a case of it supposedly happened when we were skiing.
Work drinks are always dangerous.
Work drinks are always dangerous. I mean, any amount of alcohol is always dangerous when you've got like a group together and like valuable items. But like one of my dad's jackets got stolen while we were skiing from like a rack of coats. And his was underneath like my coat and someone else's coat, and his was supposedly the one that got stolen. However, there were like, probably 15 drinks involved at that point as well. So it could have been many things, but it did cross my mind that alcohol may have been involved in your laptop disappearance. But maybe the first time, but the second time definitely not.
Yeah.
Your fault.
I have to say the second
Can't
time.
lay any blame.
Yeah, it's very hard to kind of take blame for it. First time, maybe a bit more can take blame for it. I also, I'd say it's sort of 90% just me the first time, maybe 10% alcohol, but or 10% alcohol, 10% knackeredness from the day, and then 80% me. Let's give it that.
God. London living.
Would you dare?
Would you dare? Yeah. Tom, why don't you tell us a little bit about where you live, what you're up to,
Oh, well,
what you've got going on in life?
A few months ago, there were some buses being burnt around where I live.
Oh, good.
So it's a bit different from London. No, I live in Belfast. Been living here 6 years now. My dad's side are from Belfast anyway. So I've got family over here, but I came here for uni and then met my partner and I've stayed. Now have a dog.
Oh, wow.
You're fully settled in.
Yeah, having a dog is next level. That's
yeah, I mean it's nice. Like, I mean we're not set to Belfast. Like, we've kind of been like 2 years sort of thing. We don't want to, because she's almost been here 9 years now or something.
Oh, blimey.
7 years.
Yeah.
I can't remember, but I feel like once you get to 10 years living somewhere, it's really hard to tear your roots up and move somewhere else.
Is Belfast as well the kind of place that you could see? Is it the kind of place you'd want to kind of stay permanently, or is it kind of, because I feel like places like London, for example, have this air of, I'll do it for a few years and then I'll try find somewhere a bit more kind of mellow. I've never really done Belfast, so I don't know what the kind of the vibe is.
I mean, to be fair, Belfast, whenever I first moved here, was an absolute shithole. One of the reasons why I moved here, because it was the cheapest place to live for a student. And Ronan, you might find this a bit depressing living in London, but whenever I was a student, my rent monthly was £220. Yeah. It's now, I'm living in a nicer place and I'm now paying £305 a month per rent.
Jeez, that's incredible because I always thought Newcastle was like pretty much
Cheap.
the cheapest place. Yeah,
No.
certainly in England, I think it'd be up there. But like, yeah, that's still cheaper than what I was paying in Newcastle.
You're saying it started off as a shithole, though?
It started off as a
starting to get bit
shithole,
nicer
but
while you've been
yeah,
there?
well, I always said all Belfast needed was money being pumped into it. And I think, obviously, COVID was a bad thing, but I think it basically made loads of businesses that have been around for years that weren't doing very well close down.
Yeah.
And now loads of businesses are reopening or like are opening up in places.
Like new businesses.
Yeah, like new businesses, and like the marketplaces where they do like food and they've got like beer and everything like that. Those sorts of places are opening up in Belfast now, which I think is like a staple of a very middle class thing.
Yeah, definitely.
Personally,
yeah.
But it's much nicer than when I first moved, and it's the one thing that I always really liked about Belfast is it's a very colourful city anyway. Like there's loads of graffiti everywhere, and I don't know. I just feel like if you lived in a city where there was nothing on the walls, it'd be a bit boring.
There's an element of like liveliness and rowdiness to it that kind of keeps it interesting, keeps it entertaining.
Yeah.
Do you have your eyes on any other parts of Ireland though, or in terms of like moving, or would you move to the UK? Or
I think I would love to live in the Irish countryside when I'm older, but my partner works in theatre, so she needs to be near a city really in order to get work.
It's a bit of limited drama jobs out in the fields.
Yeah, so we were talking about moving to London potentially for a year. This was like last year we were talking about it. And then
part of the London collective that's just growing larger and larger.
Well, I was born in London.
Yeah.
So I have family there, and my sister lives there and everything, so it wouldn't be that big of a deal to me. But we got the dog, and we were kind of like, it's already hard enough finding a place, but finding a place that lets you have a dog is even harder.
Yeah.
But I think the plan is to move up to the north of England. Because if I was ever going to live in England again, I wouldn't live in the south unless it was London. The south's a shithole. Sorry to any southern listeners, but it is.
I haven't checked our demographics. I don't know if we've got any southern listeners. Yeah. I think they're all northerners, apart from the ones based in London. So.
And I wouldn't want to live in York because I grew up there. Newcastle, I've got family there, and so I wouldn't want to live there. And so we kind of settled on Liverpool. Was the aim, because Liverpool's like a really vibrant city as well.
Great city, great countryside nearby. You got the beaches and that, like the sand dunes. Yeah, that'd be like super nice.
Yeah, and also if we ever need to go back to Ireland, the ferry's in Liverpool.
Yeah, hop, skip and a jump.
Yeah, like it's really quick to get over.
Cracking music scene in Liverpool as well. Yeah. Lots of live music and like upcoming bands and stuff like that. And
Beatles,
crazy nightlife. The Beatles, yeah, small upcoming bands like the Beatles. You might not have heard of them.
It's a hot tip for you guys. You got to look out for them. I'm telling you, it'll be the next big thing.
They're aggressively plastered over Liverpool. I remember being like out there, and it's like every single bar you go into plays them at least once and has some element of their name somewhere, like on the toilets or like blazoned across one of the doors, or pictures of them of the bars. It's almost like the city of Liverpool is the cult of the Beatles to a weird extent.
But I'd rather be subjected to the Beatles being everywhere rather than what it is in Belfast, which is Game of Thrones. I'm sick to death of Game of Thrones.
I thought you were going to say sectarian violence, but like Game of Thrones that's a new comparison. Do
you know what? Like, there's not that much sectarian violence, honestly.
Just too much Game of Thrones.
Yeah, I like.
How much was even filmed there?
Oh, all of the scenes that were set in the north of Game of Thrones were filmed there. And loads of like the studios where they filmed loads of the indoor scenes were filmed there as well. So every taxi man in Belfast claims that they've met one of the Game of Thrones cast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I imagine there's a memorabilia and that kind of stuff as well.
Well, do you know, interestingly, every taxi man that has told me about the person, like somebody they met in Game of Thrones, has all said Kit Harington's an absolute cunt.
Really?
Yeah.
New podcast beef. Add him to the list.
that is some juicy stuff though, because he always sort of like in like Graham Norton like videos and all that kind of stuff. He plays like a sort of pretty nice kind of humble
quiet.
dude, I guess. That's his whole...
Yeah.
Never comes across as,
Imagine
like,
going on to
particularly
Graham
arrogant.
Norton and being a cunt, though. Like, imagine just swaggering on and giving it all that.
Yeah, you wouldn't do well.
I think the PR manager has to step in. Like, is there any specific stories, Tom, that you've heard about him, or is it just kind of a general vibe?
There was one time I was driving, like I had a really early morning flight, so I had to get a taxi was picking me up and driving me to one of the airports in Belfast, and this was like 6 a.m. and I wasn't in the mood to be talking, and the taxi man was just telling me about how he was really rude and kept on changing his destination, and the taxi man was like, "I don't like that." That's what I can remember from being very
I wonder
tired.
what various destinations he kept wanting to go to.
Oh, I don't know.
Different Game of Thrones locations on the island.
No, I think they were saying it was something about they were going. He was meant to be meeting somebody at a bar or something. I don't even know if this story is true.
I wonder if while they were in the taxi, they were listening to the Chronic by Dr Dre.
Yes, Louis, the master of transitions.
The segue.
Cue the sting.
I don't know. Cue the sting.
More of something else entirely.
Okay, now the sting's played, probably, if I remember to add it in. Tom.
Yes.
Welcome to the part of the show where we talk about your album of choice.
Thank you.
You've chosen The Chronic by Dr. Dre, which is a certified classic that I imagine most people will have heard of, if not everybody.
Yes.
Would you like to tell us a little bit about what made you pick the album?
Well, so this album, it was the first ever album that I actually owned, like a CD of.
Oh, really?
And my dad gave it to me when I was 8 years old.
Wow.
Which is an interesting choice for an 8-year-old. I also, it'll make it even funnier, Ronan, but so I'm mixed race and I've got one white parent and one black parent. And it was my white parent that gave it to me.
Brilliant.
And I just remember my dad talking about it, and like one of my other big like bands I'm a fan of is Parliament, who are heavily sampled in this album.
Did you like Parliament beforehand, or was Parliament a band that you came to later and then realised that they were sampled?
Oh no, my dad has been playing Parliament my whole life.
Right, okay.
So it was actually, I didn't really realise that Parliament were sampled up until, like, my dad probably told me when I was a kid, but it didn't register until I was like, all right, I'm doing this album for the podcast. I should probably research it a bit. And then I was like,
that's cool.
I'm learning so many things about this album that I listen to all the time.
Yeah.
And I just remember my dad telling me all about sampling and like what's used, like where different parts of the songs come from. And it sort of unlocked this sort of love and interest in hip hop sampling. I just think it's like so creative that it's changing one art form into something that's completely different, whilst also still keeping parts of the original. Like, I also love another big sampler, MF Doom, if you've ever heard of him.
Yes.
He's pretty underground.
Pretty low key.
But yeah, no, it's mainly like because of my dad that I picked this album. Whenever Louis first messaged our group of friends about who wants to come on the podcast, I said, "Oh, if I donate to your charity run, Louis, will you let me come on?"
Yeah. So
you did specify that you wanted to cover a different album.
Oh, I know. Well, the album that I said was this one, but it's called like Fish Head Mackerel or something like that, and it's just torturous. And I was just doing it as a joke.
We would have done it though, to be fair.
Oh no, I've never listened to it before. I just know it's a bad album, and I listened to one song of it, and I was like, no, this is.
The awareness that we'd have to listen to it, but you'd also have to listen to it, and then we'd have to talk about it for an hour, and you're like, I don't know what the fuck I would have said about it.
Yeah.
So you went, oh, I'll actually go for an album that I have some passion for.
Yeah, like this album, unfortunately, isn't on Spotify. Only one of its songs is, which is the most famous one, probably off the album, which is Nothing But a G-Thang with Snoop Dogg. But this album and another one that I sent on to Louis one time are the only reasons why I want to pay for YouTube Premium, so that I can listen to it. Yeah, and listen to it uninterrupted. but I still haven't paid for it because I can't be bothered to give in to corporate greed.
Do you still have the CD of it?
Yes, I do. I was clearing out my room during the first lockdown when I went to stay with my parents and found the CD.
Oh, nice.
Showed it to my dad, and he was like, "That's nice. Isn't that mine?" And I was like, "No, you gave it to
me." He was hoping you'd have forgotten so he could just get it back off you.
Yeah.
It was only a lend. I just lent you it.
Well, my dad's a big hoarder though with like music, and I remember him saying to me one time whenever we were very drunk that one of the things he's most proud of is my music taste. Bear in mind, he's got like.
Is he proud of it because he's like, I crafted it?
Yeah. Fully crafted it. But bear in mind, he's got a son that's a doctor as well. Yes. And that's one of the things he decides to say he's proud of. But yeah, no, my dad's big into like hip hop, funk, Britpop as well. We both share a common love of, and alternative music from the 80s, like Joy Division and everything.
Is your dad the big music influence in this one?
My dad. Yeah, my mum is from West Africa, and so a lot of the stuff she listens to is like, it's called High Life. If you've ever listened to it. Yeah. So that's what she mainly listens to, and then she listens to a lot of R&B as well. But wouldn't play music as much.
That's a cool way, like array of different influences though as well, and I like that your dad covers hip hop and Britpop, because in some ways they feel like sort of diametrically opposed sides of like the 90s, you know what I mean? Like, I don't think it seems that way so much to us now, but like I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, I don't know how common it would have been for them to go hand in hand back then. Maybe they would have done though, I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, the thing that always baffles me is that my dad was this wee white boy in Newcastle in the 1990s listening to hip hop whenever like albums like this whenever they were coming out. And who was he talking to about it? Because from what I've gathered, I don't really think his friends really like hip hop.
Right. So he's just by himself enjoying the genre.
Yeah.
Until obviously you came along and he was able to enforce it on you from what was it, 8 years old?
Yeah, well, it was probably younger, but he gave me this CD at 8 or 9. I can't remember exactly.
Is there any like childhood memories you have specifically linked to this album then?
Oh yeah, so I know it's jumping the gun a bit, but my favourite song on this album is called Stranded on Death Row. Mm-hmm. It's like one of the later tracks, and there's like a sort of loop, like a ree sound on it. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you guys probably don't remember it, but my dad told me that it's actually a orchestra from like the 1930s played backwards and pitched up.
Oh, sick.
And I remember being baffled. Turns out I was researching it for this podcast. Can't find any information about that anywhere. Which this sort of thing is a common trend with my dad. Whenever my older brother was 11, my dad, he was reading like the ingredients on HP sauce or something, and my dad told him that there's like a spice called tamarind, and my older brother asked him what it was, and my dad instantly just said, "Oh, that's monkey tails, like a tamarind monkey tail," because there's a type of monkey called a tamarind, and this was obviously pre having like smartphones and stuff. So my brother believed him and went into school, told his whole class that it was tamarind monkey tails. Everybody laughed at him. So I don't know if this is my dad winding me up.
I still get this with like my brother. It was my brother who used to do this, and there are still the occasional things that I'll just say, and then I'll catch myself and be like, "Oh no, hang on." Like my brother told me that when I was like 10 years old, and there's a decent chance that is fully not true.
Complete bollocks.
I mean, none of the best facts are 100% true. You know, it's
yeah, that like kind of sparked my interest into sampling. So even if it isn't true, it still had a lasting effect on me.
The thing is as well, that's a very believable. I don't even want to call it a lie, because maybe it is just like some really underground knowledge of the. Because I feel like that is exactly the kind of thing that like sampling does. You know, you do take a sound and transform it into something completely unique if you're like talented enough doing it. I just remember, Ronan, when we were in New Zealand and listening to a lot of like chopped and screwed stuff, and being consistently impressed by that, just by artists. And obviously Dre is kind of one of the masters of the genre, of like the production side of things, when it comes to completely recontextualizing sounds and introducing them as their own instruments almost, and then like, you know, layering it with various things on top of that. And yeah, I myself did have to do a bit of research on this album, because I'll admit I've like obviously heard of it. I'd obviously listened to bits and pieces of it, but I'd never done a full listen of it. And I feel like it's that kind of background knowledge that like everyone's kind of vaguely aware of, like this part of musical history, you know, that's Dre and Snoop Dogg and Death Row Records and Tupac and all that kind of stuff. Like everyone has this kind of background awareness of it, but I'd never really taken the time to deep dive it and look into it, and like kind of the East Coast, West Coast side, and like how fundamentally game changing the Chronic was. It's very interesting to kind of read some of the kind of contextual reviews and like people talking about it, and discussing how it was like a revolutionary new sound at the time it was released. And it kind of brought about, is it G-Funk, I think it's referred to? Like it almost invented this, or kind of
subcategory of
brought out this, and it was like, this is a very West Coast vibe. And it was interesting talking about how the difference of how Dre sampled was to create something new from all these like scraps of old, versus other producers at the time would just kind of find a beat from an old record and then rap over the top of it without much kind of intervention. So it was its own like very unique sound in that way, which I thought was really interesting. And it's easy to miss if you just come to this record completely like fresh-eyed, because obviously everything has been so influenced since the Chronic by the Chronic that it might not like immediately stand out as game-changing, because you've been listening to the game that was changed ever since. Yeah.
Good way of putting it. Yeah.
Yeah, I've never actually thought about it like that, because obviously this was one of the first hip hop things that I listened to, and so everything else has come after that in my eyes. But
so you've kind of progressed chronologically from the Chronic, which,
but obviously it's not the same for everyone.
I think it's something that's interesting about it as well, like thinking about it in the context of its sort of Parliament influence. I mean, like, so even like the name G-Funk, I think, is a play on P-Funk, as in Parliament's kind of underfunk. And in a sense, it because it obviously is so radical, but it also just feels like such a kind of natural thing to happen to hip hop, because hip hop comes out of funk break beats, you know, like that sort of James Brown funky drummer and all that kind of stuff. And this is almost just sort of using the sort of Parliament side of funk, which was its whole own thing, and had kind of developed into all these kind of like all this quite distinct style, and like a kind of harder and often more like electronic funk, I guess, sort of for some of it. And it's literally just drawing from that. It's almost kind of remarkable that more people hadn't drawn from that before, I guess. Like, I mean, I think people had sampled Parliament, but like some of it almost just seems to kind of blossom out of that, like one acknowledgement that there's this whole kind of other side to funk that wasn't yet fully influencing hip hop, I guess.
Like kind of synthesizers and like heavy beats and that kind of side of things, I think, right? Yeah.
It makes sense then that the way that my dad probably found this was through Parliament, to be honest. I need to actually ask him about where he found out about it, but I'd imagine that's where it is.
We are realizing that we at some point we might need to do like a parents special and just cycle through all our parents and get them all on as guests. Because I mean, as I was saying, I brought up your laptop situation to my parents at the pub, and they started talking about what albums they talk about and like what their friends would talk about. I was like, we'll add that. And then my dad was like, I've got some stories I wouldn't be able to tell on air, all that kind of stuff. I was like, well, that's just intriguing.
It has become quite a nice, like, wholesome side to this project, I guess, is that like that comes up time and time again. I know I bring it up constantly, and you've been bringing it up, Louis, but like this whole like parental influence thing, I mean, I suppose it's so obvious, but I think we've done our fair share of acknowledging it, and it's just quite nice, isn't it?
The
It's
familial
quite wholesome.
influence, like Tom last week talking about his sister's
sister
influence on him as well.
Yeah.
But then it begs the question: what are you going to pass on to your kids?
Yeah. I do sometimes think about it. I'm sometimes like, I'm going to be playing this one when they're younger. I'm going to keep this one on rotation and hopefully give them a taste of something better than whatever shite they end up choosing. But
I mean, my partner's a massive Ariana Grande fan, and like the mixture of Dr. Dre and Ariana Grande just seems baffling to me.
I think that'll produce a nice, well-rounded musical taste. To be fair,
Yeah.
Yeah, you get in the range in there.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about. Just to encourage an open mindedness
and that kind of interest in exploring the genres as well.
Yeah, although I have to say, like, you do kind of like, surely you want to come across vaguely cool to your kids, and I'm always slightly worried that like the trends would have just moved on in such a way that all the stuff that you think's like really kind of like just hot.
But you see, this is where Tom's dad did a big brain move because he chose the Chronic, which is timeless.
Yeah. One of my favorite things my dad does, because I only see my parents I think 2 or 3 times a year now. Whenever we go home and we're having a drink, he'll get out his phone and he'll tell you to put a song in the queue, and then you pass it to the next person. But you're not allowed, and you like delete what everybody else has searched, so you don't know what's coming up.
That's the one, I like that.
Like oftentimes, if it's my 3 siblings, my mum and my dad, you get such a wide variety of music, and they're always tying back to like when we had this memory or you showed me this song sort of thing.
Yeah, and it can be a great way to kind of find new music as well. Like no matter how good the algorithms get, they're never quite as good as when you can get a mate or a family member to share a song that they've really been loving. And there's just something about, I mean, maybe some of it isn't even just that the songs themselves are better. It's that you immediately create a memory.
It's who you associate it with.
Having that sharing
Take
moment.
that, machines.
Yeah, and it's always yeah. Fighting back bit by bit. Song recommendation at a time. That's what I was trying to say.
Tom, what kind of mood are you in when you put this album on?
Do you know what? Because I've listened to this album so much, obviously there's a lot of it about sucking balls and fucking bitches and smoking weed.
Yeah.
I've listened to it in all like manner of moods. Oftentimes, because it's like, I think the whole album itself is like an hour in total. Oftentimes if I'm walking around on a Saturday morning, walking the dog down the river in Belfast, I'll put this on because then it's like a nice round hour sort of thing.
Yeah.
But I've done it whenever I've been on the Chronic or whatever, and it just like there's not really a mood for me. Like I know Tom last week was talking about cycling down. I don't have a memory as nice as that. It's just as a whole, I enjoy the album.
Yeah. Is there like any standout moments then that in the album that you particularly like love?
I really love which one is it called? There's like a skit one that's called The Doctor's Office.
Oh yeah.
Through, and there's a second skit, and I feel like a lot of hip hop albums don't really do skits. Like they take themselves too seriously.
And sometimes the ones that do skits go on for wait, there's too many and they go long. I feel like they were balanced quite well in this actually.
Yeah, like I don't know. I just think it just shows that they're having fun and they're not afraid to like put something out.
Yeah, we've got to give some appreciation actually to the skit as an art form within albums, because it seems like quite a distinct hip hop thing. I'm not sure I can think of other genres that use
you can imagine
that.
like Ed Sheeran doing a skit midway through Divide, could you? It'd be fucking terrible.
Yeah.
No.
I'm kind of imagining like my parents, for example, would be like a bit even confused at the notion. Like do you want to explain kind of like what a skit is like and the role it kind of plays in an album, I guess.
I don't really know like the role, but I'd say it's more just to break apart songs, because there are some albums which are really smooth and every song flows into the next one, which is nice. But then I feel like with hip hop, and especially with Dr. Dre, who's doing in this album, especially like creating a whole new subgenre and trying to be as creative as possible, it separates loads of songs from each other. So you don't get like a wide jump and you're like, where are these songs don't seem similar at all.
I guess it provides like a little bit of creative breathing room then, doesn't it? kind of
Yeah.
space out the track listing.
Yeah, and it, like you were saying, in a very fun way as well. They're pretty much always fun and breezy as a general rule, I guess. I'm sure there's exceptions to that, but like they're sort of light-hearted and kind of paint a scene almost. Like they're kind of like you're in a place, time and place with stuff going on, and then another track comes on.
Yeah, I don't know. I just like I don't think Dr. Dre is a particularly good rapper. I think he's the best producer that there is. And like
I think that's probably
rap-
something he agrees with.
Oh yeah. Well,
To be fair. I feel like that's how he sees his role in this. I think I read that the Chronic initially he wrote it almost for someone else to perform, and then I think he was not pressured, but like encouraged to put his name on it and claim it as his own. And to be fair, I think that was probably the right move because it has cemented his name.
I thought his bars were ghostwritten, weren't they? Or am I imagining that?
I think so. I think Snoop Dogg did a lot of the writing on it.
Sure, yeah.
Snoop Dogg used this as essentially his
launch
own
platform, didn't he? Yeah.
Springboard. Yeah.
Actually launched quite a few careers, didn't it?
Yeah. I think like my all-time favorite rapper, I'm not saying the greatest because there's a massive debate on who the greatest of all time is a guy called Amine, who does like skits and stuff at the starts of his like songs and everything, and I think it's a nice little nod to older hip hop. I mean, because this album's what 1992, 30 years old now.
God, yeah, it's old when you put it like that.
Yeah,
still sounds fresh though.
It does. And that what struck me is that like the production is, I think, like in terms of the kind of the soundscape and like the musical, I don't know, ideas that are at play, it very much kind of fits into its 90s like era. Like it's very like contextual in that sense.
Yeah.
But like the production has not aged one bit, you know? Like it's all so crisp, it's all so clean. You could put this on if you came to like someone who had no musical knowledge or an alien or whatever, and you put this on and you told them like, yeah, this is a 90s inspired album made this year. I think people would believe you because like there's no distinct like artifacts on the production side of things. The mixing is incredible. Like every element of it is like perfectly produced, and I think that's obviously why Dre has like cemented himself as like one of the greatest of all time when it comes to the production side of things. Obviously, like then you know, he also went on to produce for so many other artists, including like, you know, picking out Eminem, who is obviously one of the greatest of all time as well. So
who then picked out 50 Cent. Like, and he's also produced for like Kendrick and stuff like that as well.
Yeah. So it's just been an awfully good run.
I do think in terms of decades of music, I think the 90s is one of the best decades of music.
I think it saw a lot of shake-up, didn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, I feel you on that. I think we've touched upon that previously, that I kind of almost see it as like the last big kind of like revolutionary period in music, I guess. It just so much was happening in all directions. And then not to say that there hasn't, like, there's been loads of really good stuff since, but I'm not sure anything, any sort of decade since it has had the same level of mind-blowing, whoa, this is we've never comprehended something like this before. I think we're kind of rehashing stuff, and sometimes kind of in new and creative ways. But there's a lot of kind of reusing things, which actually, like, I say that, but obviously that's a big part of this album as well, is reusing the past to create something new. So who knows?
I'd be interested to see if somebody samples, if somebody samples stuff from the comic.
I actually have an interesting little story. Listening through this for the first time all the way through was my first time hearing Lyrical Gangbang, and it turns out that I've, without realizing, sampled Lyrical Gangbang in a terrible song I made like 3 years ago. Specifically, specifically the bit at the start where it says this should be played at high volume. I had that as a completely like separated sample with no context whatsoever, just in a sample pack that I downloaded, and I just whacked that at the start of a like a very poorly produced kind of electronic beat, like a dance track, without any.
Play it on the next episode of the podcast.
Play it. Maybe I'll insert a short clip.
Can you play it now? Like, as in, can you have it like inserted into the podcast at this point? Depending on how much of a shake-up it is, in case
it's quite an aggressive. beat, but like I can add a little. I'll add a little sample, and I'll do a little side-by-side comparison, and hopefully not get any like copyright strikes or anything like that. Let's see.
This should be played at high volume.
I was going to bring that up as like a little side tangent at some point, but I thought it was funny that you just brought up like, oh, I wonder if and sampled it. It's like, yep, little white boy from York has sampled it by accident without even realizing it was from one of the greatest albums of all time. Yeah. Is this one that you've got much of a relationship with prior to listening to it on the podcast?
Yeah, so I'd listened to it a few times, and I really sort of really liked some of the tracks from it. Some of the biggest ones, really, if I'm being honest. Like, I mean, so Nothing But a G Thing and Let Me Ride and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it wasn't on Spotify for ages, and then they put it on Spotify. So I thought it was still on Spotify, actually.
And you messaged me that, which was a lie.
So basically, that window that yeah, I know, it was a lie, an inadvertent lie. But that brief window when it was on Spotify, it is my relationship with it. I hadn't really listened to it much more than that.
I think it got put on Spotify briefly, and then I think Snoop Dogg owns Ruthless Records now. Death Row Records now.
Yeah.
And I think there was some.
Right, yeah.
This is just me reading things, but I think there was some copyright thing with Dr. Dre's music.
I saw that Snoop Dogg decided to turn The Chronic into an NFT.
How does that even work?
So
surely that's not related to the music.
No longer is distributed on any like music streaming services. You have to own it as an NFT.
Oh, bloody hell. Surely not. That's not how NFTs work, is it?
It's mysterious, isn't it?
But it's more fungible than that.
It's I'd say it's a disagreeable decision, and it probably won't age well considering the state of the NFTs at the minute. But hopefully it'll make a return to streaming services, and thankfully it is on YouTube in full, various uploads, and in like really good quality. Actually, I'm not really sure how I guess they've just ripped it from their CDs that their dads gave them when they were 8 years old.
Yeah, probably.
But yeah, sorry, Ronan, you were talking about like how your relationship with it was purely through Spotify. Was that like because you saw it was there and was like, oh, that's a classic that I need to kind of add to my...
Yeah, well, so I'd meant to like listen to it all the way through for some time, and I just didn't, because I tend to avoid listening to stuff on YouTube. I guess I just find it a bit of a faff with the adverts
it's a complete faff.
But once it came on Spotify, I straight away pretty much nodded on. And yeah, I guess the thing I love about it is just how funky it is. I mean, like, I try to tell Hannah this sometimes, because I think Hannah's got a very mixed relationship with hip hop, and I've never quite been able to pinpoint what it is that she likes and what she doesn't. You know what I mean? Like if you're trying to predict like, oh, here's a new song, I'd really struggle to say
you're gonna love this
whether
one.
she'd like
it
or
yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
But one of the things I always try to say to her is that like hip hop at its core is just so funky, and like she loves the like funky and disco-y stuff.
Have you ever played MF Doom?
Like, having said that, to be fair, I actually don't know whether I have. She's bound to have heard it in the background at points, but I've never like been, you've got to hear this track.
Sat down. Yeah.
I'm sure there could be stuff, but I don't know. Yeah, I literally never can predict. Like I'm not convinced that this would be the one necessarily, just because it's I don't know, it's kind of gangster rap in it, I suppose.
I like that. I feel like we've all got someone in our lives who we want to like hip hop, but just doesn't. And we'll keep fighting.
Who's yours, Louis?
I have one of my friends who I routinely will like test the waters with every couple of months. Just send a and I try to like tone it down, go for the most accessible hip hop possible, and they just really bounce off. Generally speaking, like the kind of the lyrics and the delivery, I think they find it all quite aggressive. Even when I'm sending them like Chance the Rapper, it's not particularly aggressive. But yeah, it's a work in progress. One day You just gotta believe.
No, I remember a party that we went to, Louis, whenever we were like 16, and
Notoriously an age for terrible taste in music.
But our friend group, nobody was really into hip hop, I'd say, until like university, really. Like, it would be very much what's it called, pop punk that was played.
A lot of indie as well.
Yeah, which isn't necessarily bad. And I remember at a party playing some hip hop, and it wasn't aggressive hip hop, as you say. It was stuff that I thought people would like, and somebody said, "Can you change the song, please? I don't like this." Wait, Louis, any guesses? Any guesses? Any guesses?
I mean, it could literally be any of them, to be honest.
It's Joe.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't ever take it personally.
Oh, no, I didn't.
His taste is one of the weakest.
Yeah, Joe.
No offense, Joe. I know you sometimes listen to this.
Don't scare off our listeners, Louis.
No, we'll have him on as a guest at some point as well. I look forward to seeing what he chooses. Presumably not hip hop.
No, maybe he'll subvert expectations though.
Maybe you come up with the Notorious B.I.G. something like
Life
that,
after
just to
death.
shake it up a little bit. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it did. But you telling that story did make me cringe a little bit because I can definitely kind of picture the scene.
Oh yeah.
Of it goes from playing like I don't know the Vaccines and Mumford & Sons, and then you cue on I don't know.
I can't even remember what song it was, but I remember just being like, "This is music that I like," and I don't know if any of my friends like it because
you do have to test the waters. Though. You'd have to be brave and kind of push the boundaries of the playlist, right?
Yeah, you have to push the boundaries.
And eventually, what happens is you play a song and they go, "I don't like this," and then like a few months later, they're fully bopping along to it.
Yeah, and like Louis the DJ in our friend group at home, and I just send songs to Louis now if I want him to put it on a playlist. And Louis like, "Yeah, that's grand, no worries." I know that Louis like, "Oh, I like this." Louis open to listen to new stuff. Whereas if I send it to somebody else, they're like, "What have you sent me? This is a waste of my time."
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like I'm always up for like giving new music a try. Which is part of the reason of starting this podcast is like an excuse for like album swaps basically, and introducing to new artists and old artists I've never really like taken the time to listen to, or just discovering new things, which is part of the joy of sharing music with friends. It's all very wholesome.
Yeah.
You're saying that, Tom, like you put on this album. So like if you go for like a dog walk or whatever, that kind of thing. And I'm just kind of curious, like what is it that makes you choose this album over another? Like when you're, putting your shoes on, putting the dog collar on, and you're just like, I'm feeling the Chronic today. Is it just like a case of
I think
familiarity? Is it like this is nice to return to something I know? And can you sing along to it? Do you know the lyrics at this point?
I don't know the lyrics on all the songs. I know a lot of the lyrics, but I mean, there's certain words that you couldn't really say in some places. But like, I don't know. I guess it is a familiarity thing, and like oftentimes because it's not on Spotify, I won't listen to it as much. Like I'm big on listening to my own playlists on Spotify and everything, and I'll be like, "Oh, I've not listened to this in like 2 months," so I'll put it on and I'll listen to the whole thing, and I might not listen to it for another 2 months, or I might listen to it the next day.
It does stay a bit special. As like an album experience.
It's one of those. I think everyone's got a few like albums that they just love listening to.
Yeah, all the way through.
Yeah, and even just listening to it for this podcast, I've listened to it I think 6 or 7 times in the past week or 2 weeks, and I was like reading into it and learned so much more about this album that I love that I wouldn't have done. So thank you very much for inviting me on the podcast because I've learned more about something that I love.
Is there any particular like bits and pieces that you picked up on in your recent listens that you'd like to share?
So I did some background on when the album was released and stuff, and it was Dr. Dre fresh out of leaving NWA and his first like solo album, and he was like broke for money essentially. Like everyone thought he was really rich because of NWA, but obviously NWA was its own beast in terms of contracts and everything.
It's a messy one, right?
Yeah. And this essentially propelled him into his own producing act and everything.
Which is crazy considering how
massive it is.
Good it is. Yeah, like for a first time shine. I know he did a lot of production while he was on Eazy-E's record label, right? for like other people. I think I read that that was quite a time crunch and very stressful for him.
Yeah.
I guess it was like a case of diamonds made under pressure, where he clearly honed his craft to the point of
Yeah, but I think
doing.
he took like a year or something to make this.
Really?
I think wasn't as under pressure for it.
Yeah. So it took us something. It was like a creation of passion then.
Yeah, and like one of the things that I always find interesting, listening to like another big producer of what's he called, DJ Khaled.
Oh yeah.
DJ Khaled always annoys me because I'm always like, oh, it's barely his music. Obviously, he's doing all the work. It's more I don't really like him, but I'm always like, the man shouts his name so much. But Dr. Dre is literally doing exactly the same thing in this album, and it doesn't bother me in the slightest.
Yeah. I think there's an element of artistry to that, to be fair.
Yeah.
I think when someone who's actually good shouts their name, you're like, yeah!
Yeah.
And then when someone is kind of obnoxious and too full of themselves, it definitely shows.
It's also like if all they do is shout their name. I mean, it's like the difference between like an MC and like just the
hype
person,
man.
you know, like the radio DJ, you know, on Capital FM that keeps on like dimming down the music and going, "It's 4 o'clock and the traffic's busy."
You're listening to Steve at 4 in the afternoon. You love it.
Jerry's just called in from Woking. Jerry, what do you want to say? Oh, I really like the show. Oh, thanks for that, Jerry. That was a very insightful comment. And now we're going to Timothy.
Yeah, that's the DJ Khaled vibe. The radio DJ.
Hate radio DJs, man.
Never considered it as a career.
Really
You've got a really
up.
good voice for it, Ronan.
Yeah. Radio 4 is fine though. Radio 4 gets a pass. That's me and my secret love.
The best BBC radio channel or whatever it's called is Radio 6.
Oh yes, to be fair.
And you can only get Radio 6 on like the app or something. So is it radio station, but they have like
new beef.
they have like such a wide eclectic variety of artists. Like sometimes I'll play Britpop, and I think that oftentimes they have somebody come in to talk to them, like from the band or whatever. And then other times they'll have like hip hop on, and it's like, who's the producer on this show? You're doing well.
It feels like more of a radio station for like actual music lovers and explorers.
Yeah.
Whereas Radio 1 is very kind of what's in the charts. Radio 2 is what was in the charts or what's in the charts that's like okay for 40-year-old women to listen to on the drive home from work. And Radio 4 is the news. So
yeah, pretty much.
I do love it when you get like a radio host who goes through their stages of retirement, though. When it's like they were a Radio 1 producer, Radio 1 host for like 20 years, and then they're like, "Yep, I'm moving to Radio 2." It's like, they've put you out to pasture.
Well, whilst we're on radio stations, I've got to give a shout out actually as well to NTS Radio. I don't know whether you guys have checked it out, but it's kind of like essentially sort of. I don't know, I don't know whether it's not for profit, but it's definitely like publicly funded anyway. You know, it's not kind of like funded through advertising. It's just everybody subscribes and gets memberships, but it's free to anybody. So I don't do that, having just said how amazing that is. But very, very similar to Radio 6. Like it just the sheer range of music is just insane. Really highly recommend checking out if you like. Just sometimes if I'm getting like way too bored of my own music, I'll just sort of turn to NTS because I know I'll be able to find something
that's cool.
That's just kind of new and fresh.
I'm gonna give that a listen to.
It's great.
It's always nice to hear where people like find new stuff from. I think that's often a question people ask is like, well, where do you go to find new music?
Where do you go, Louis?
Where do I go? Spotify algorithms can be interesting, but I think it's more miss than hit. For me mostly. There's a lot of different YouTubers who do like, these are my favorite like albums that have released in this past few months, and like these are my favorite songs and stuff. There's some that, you know, people have heard of and people that won't have. I don't know, variety. I also like to get recommendations from people. Like sometimes I'll just message like, oh, what have you been listening to recently? And just kind of get a vibe. And also I'm a big Spotify playlist stalker. So I know like on Spotify you can see, on PC you can see what people have been listening to. And I'll often be like, "Oh, Ronan's been listening to Pusha. by 9/8 on his playlist New England Wine an hour ago. How exciting. And I'll go have like a little nosy and see what the vibe is. That's kind of like, I feel like I've got like quite a scavenger approach to picking
the meat off the bone.
picking up other people's music and just having a scavenge.
Yeah, there's one of my mum's friends. Her son is like 21, 22 or something now, and he has a really good music taste. I haven't talked to him in like 10 years, but I follow him on Spotify. So sometimes I'm like, I need some new music to listen to, and he's like big into hip hop.
Nice. Okay.
And he has like hours and hours of playlists. So I'll just literally pick through them and be like, this is for me.
I love that. Yeah, it's a good way to do it. I feel like we're moving a little bit away from the chronics. I'll just ask if if there's any other like thoughts that either of you have that you wanted to share on it, or if you want to like pick some of your favorite tracks off it.
I actually don't think I came to this with anything more than just, damn, this album's funky. I just keep coming back to that. Yeah, but that probably is the main thing to say about it. It's just
that's the description of this episode. Damn, that album's funky.
Yeah, we are getting some good sound bites for t-shirts and stuff.
Oh yeah, when we get the merch out.
Yeah.
I don't know. I love also that like funky is just a suitably kind of vague term, but also that feels like quite nicely reflective of how many different sounding things can be incredibly funky. You know, like there's a big range of funky things, and this is just one corner of that range.
Yeah.
But yeah, damn, it's funky.
Damn, it's funky. Favorite songs, Tom?
My favorite song is definitely "Stranded on Death Row," and it makes me the most sad that it's not on Spotify. And then I love "These Nuts" because I just think it's funny.
That's a quality one, to be fair.
"Fuck with Dre Day" is a good one, I think, as well.
That's the big call-out track, right? That's when the diss is a
yeah,
drops.
it is, yeah. It's like that's the first real track on the album after the intro. And then "Let Me Ride's a banger.
I've got to be really basic with mine. "Let Me Ride," "Nothing But a G Thing." I think "Little Ghetto Boy" as well is the one. Like when I previously listened to it when I was on Spotify, that was one that I had on.
Yeah, I was gonna call out "Little Ghetto Boy" as well, purely because is it a flute? What's the instrument that plays out the end?
It's nice, isn't it?
It's really nice. Right? I was like, I don't know what it is.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I've got to say that like just listening through it again, just how many songs jump out, and again really annoyed me that I couldn't just add them to playlists.
Yeah,
I had that urge
because they're all like individually. They all individually stand up. Like they are all individual bangers on their own. Like they could all be singles. I think only like 2 of them are released as singles, right? Like "Ain't Nothing But a G Thing" and one of the others.
Let Me Ride.
But they're all like single worthy. Like they're all incredibly well done.
But I think that's just the creative process because they're all separate.
Yeah, they don't feel tied down by each other. Like there's the connecting string of them being like G-funk, like this new kind of genre, and this like Dre's production style. But I'd say it's the same kind of string that connects them, even if like you took like an Eminem track that Dre had produced, you feel like you could probably whack it on this album, maybe as a B-side or something, but like it would fit in the kind of the vibe. So like they weren't creatively restricted in the sense that it was like, oh, this one has to flow into the next. Yeah, those are my picks as well. Lil Ghetto Boy and also Lyrical Gangbang, almost because I accidentally sampled it, so now it has a special place in my heart as being yeah. Brill. All right, Tom, do you have a quiz for us?
Yes, I do have a quiz. Literally, as soon as you messaged me like 2 weeks ago, I was already writing the quiz.
Yeah, excited.
So, I just wanted to do it before I forgot about it, to be honest.
Valid, yeah.
So it's multiple choice, and Ronan, you'll be unhappy to hear there's no higher or lower questions.
Oh, bugger! I'm calling this. This is fixed. Louis, did you specifically message him saying they're banned?
No, I'd already written it before you released the last episode. So the first question, or do you want to put a jingle on or something?
Oh shit! Yeah,
Louis,
I need to.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's very important.
This isn't my first radio in a podcast.
It's time for the quiz. Dun-dun-dun-dun.
Oh, Bugger. Sorry, I ruined that. You can edit around that. That's it.
I'm leaving it in.
So the first question is all about what Dr. Dre's real name is.
Oh no.
And I've got 4 famous Andres here.
Oh,
So
Andre 3000.
The first one is called, so A is Andre Rene Rousimov. B is Andre Laurent Benjamin. C is Andre Ramel Young. And D is Andre Brahe. There's only one white guy in this list.
No. That's gonna be the one I accidentally pick.
I know, yeah, because I was gonna pick the Benjamin one, which is the whitest sounding name, but just somehow I think it's that. Am I like? Are we supposed to buzz in? By the way,
Do you want to?
No, you just say because they're almost.
You claim if you claim B, I'm gonna go with D. I don't remember what it was.
Okay, I'll claim B.
You claim D, Louis?
I don't like the way
You locked in. You locked in.
Yeah, I'll commit.
Okay, so the correct answer is C. Andre Ramel Young. A. Andre Rene Rousimov is Andre the Giant. B. Andre Laurent Benjamin is Andre 3000.
That's why it made it sound that familiar.
And Andre Brahe is Captain Holt from Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
You know what? I'm happy I didn't accidentally choose the white guy, so I'll take it.
So it's 0-0 for those keeping score at home. The second question.
It might be a full 0-0 of this one, to be fair.
Oh, don't worry, I've got a tie-breaking question. I come prepared. How much did Dr. Dre sell Beats by Dre for? A. 3.4 billion. B. 78 million. C. 1.2 billion. Or D. 768 million.
Who did he sell them to? Was it Apple?
Apple, yeah.
Like I think I've got my answer.
Oh, okay.
But you should be able to pick first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't like that you.
We can both answer the same.
Because I feel like
that.
Oh yeah,
because I don't.
okay.
No, to be fair, Ronan, if you answer it, I'm just gonna copy your answer because you're good at number things.
No, because I have no clue. But I'm guessing the first one. I think.
I think. Can you repeat the questions, please?
Yeah.
Answers.
So A is 3.4.
That's a lot of money.
B is 78 million. C is 1.2 billion. And D is 768.
I'd like to go with 768 million, please, Dale.
Okay. Well, that's a point for Rowan.
Oh my sake.
3.4 billion.
So much money.
Yeah, it's fucking
What
insane,
the
isn't it? But obviously he didn't get the full 3.4 billion himself.
No.
But he probably got at least a mil. At least a bill.
I'd hope he got at least a mil, otherwise there'd be some more disses coming out on the chronic part.
Nah, he definitely got at least a bill. Question 3 is how many members of NWA were there? A is 5, B is 6, C is 8, and D is 12.
I think I've got an answer.
Okay, I think I've got an answer as well. Who
Okay,
wants to
well,
go?
who
It's a
wants to go
Mexican standoff.
Well, like I think I'm going with A, but I'm not sure whether I've messed that up.
What was A again?
5, I
5.
think.
And then there was
B is
B was 6. I'll go with B 6.
The point goes to Louis on that one.
Yeah.
It's actually kind of one of those tricky questions where there was another 6th member of NWA, but he left in like the early years, so he's not really remembered.
Okay,
But I remember him.
So it was a trick. Do you, Louis?
Yeah. He was my favorite. You know that Doctor MF Doom song that has Mr. Fantastic on it. No one knows who that was.
Yeah.
That's him. That's the sick NWA number. Huge fan, mate. Huge fan.
That is a niche joke.
I wondered if I could work it in if it would get just like, what?
I mean, you told it to the right audience. But...
It's like two icebergs coming together. That one is deep knowledge.
So it's 1-1 at the moment.
I'm feeling competitive now.
Yeah,
Question 3. Where is Compton? A, San Francisco. B, New York. C, Los Angeles. Or D, San Diego.
I know this one. Unless it's a trick question. I think I know this one.
Louis, have you got an answer?
Yeah.
What are you guys going for?
I'm going to type it in the chat. There's too much at stake.
Okay. Oh no,
Right.
I'm really not confident with this, and it feels like something I should know. And also, I don't think I've spelled it right.
All right, I'll do it in 3, 2, 1.
Are we doing it on one or on?
On one.
Okay.
3, 2, 1.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're both
Okay,
correct.
The level of paranoia setting in there.
So it's 2-2, and this is the final
for the listeners,
question.
the answer was Los Angeles. By the way.
Yeah, sorry. So which of these artists that Dr. Dre has produced for has sold the highest number of records? A is Tupac, B is Kendrick Lamar, C is 50 Cent, and D is Eminem.
That's a really hard question.
I think I know who I'm going to guess, but I don't know whether...
Do you want to type it?
Yeah, I'm going to guess. Okay.
I'm happy saying this one aloud because I'm not as confident about it. I'm going to guess Eminem.
I'm also going to guess Eminem.
You're both correct.
Oh. Does that mean we need the tiebreaker? I can't deal with this.
Yeah.
Level of
Do you want me to go through the
It's
numbers?
too much from Monday night.
Yeah. Do the numbers.
Yes,
I want to hear the
please.
numbers.
Yeah. So Tupac's got 75 million sold. Kendrick Lamar. This isn't just ones that Dr. Dre has produced. It's just
Generally speaking.
total sold in general.
Okay.
Yeah. Kendrick Lamar has 940.
Wow.
For 9,440. 944,633.
Yeah.
50 Cent has 22 million. And then Eminem has 220 million.
Fucking hell. Jesus Christ.
It's a big one. So the tiebreaker round
I knew
is
50 Cent would have a rogue amount sold, like a roguely high amount sold.
Kendrick Lamar surprised me how low it was.
Yeah,
but I guess he hasn't been around as long as them.
Yeah, I guess so.
The tiebreaker round is Dr. Dre a real doctor? Is it just a yes or a no question?
Yes.
I'm going to go no.
I feel like he's got an honorary degree or something.
Are you sure, Louis? I can do another tiebreaker round.
No, I'm gonna stick to my guns and go no. He's not a real doctor.
Okay, well, Ronan. He's got a degree. He's got an honorary degree in social anthropology.
Unbelievable! Who gave him that? That's bullshit. I think they should rescind it.
The other tiebreaker round was going to be what other hip hop group are also so the Chronic's album picture is like a homage to Rolling Papers.
Mm.
What other their UK hip hop group centered around Rolling Papers? Their name?
Ooh.
The
The Rizzler Twizzlers.
Rizzle Kicks.
Yeah, Louis
Oh.
right.
I should have thought.
You telling me it's not the Rizzler Twizzlers? They're not named after Rizzler. I don't know who is. That's...
Who are the Rizzler Twizzlers?
I don't know. They must be out there somewhere. It's too good a name. I mean, if that's not Street, I don't know what is. That's
It's not Street.
Rizzler Twizzlers. Yeah.
I nearly said Little Mix as a joke. I wanted the it doesn't matter if I get the point or not. I still lost in the original tiebreaker. But hey ho, congrats, Ronan. I will I keep saying I will, but at some point I will go through and
It might
add
be
up
kind
all
of
our
neck and neck now.
scores. Yeah, it feels that feels probably about right. So I don't know. I have a feeling that you might be edging me, just on the case of closest
to be
to
fair,
questions.
This week was like a very close week.
It was neck
terms
and
of scores, it was-
neck.
I think your how much did Dre sell Death Row for, or like was that the question?
Beats by Dre.
Oh, Beats.
Yeah,
That
it
was
was
it.
Beats by
Yeah,
Dre.
yeah. Like I think that one was close enough for me to a how close can you guess a number kind of question.
That's the thing. As soon as the numbers roll out, I'm like, fucking
Which-
Ronan Sixth Sense is kicking in, man.
Inexplicable. It is fully inexplicable. I don't know. And I really,
Got a
and
really
I'm now
good
starting to
gut
feel
feeling for it.
yeah, like a pressure to kind of keep it up. I don't know where it's coming from.
To be fair, I thought it was like $1 billion. I didn't think it was 3.5 billion.
That's a crazy amount of
Yeah.
money.
A lot.
It's too much money. Well, cool. Thank you very much for the quiz, Tom. Very good. And thank you very much for coming on and joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. And thank you for co-hosting, as always, Ronan. I'll run through the little outro, which is basically just to say, yeah, thank you all for listening. You can find us on Instagram. That's kind of our main social media presence currently. And by presence, I mean occasionally posting when a new episode comes up. But you can also find us on, Spotify, Apple Music, all these kind of places. We also have a YouTube channel, and you can email us with any thoughts, hot takes, hate mail, whatever you want, really. More of something else entirely at gmail.com. I don't know what we have lined up for the next recording yet. It's a little bit up in the air, but hopefully, however it falls, it will be somewhat spooky because in theory, the episode should release on Halloween if we don't have another case of laptops being stolen or various things disappearing, poltergeists at play. But yeah, so hopefully next episode will be a spooky-ish one, but we'll see. Yeah, cool. Thanks once again.
That's my spooky sound there. God, that was so spooky you cut out. You just...
Yeah.
It's just too much.
The communists have nothing to offer but fat cheeks and eyeglasses and lying policemen. And the capitalists proffer napalm and money in green suitcases to the naked. And the communists create heavy industry, but the heart is also heavy.